Hello folks, Darren Fredrickson here with Team Guardian. Thank you for signing up for this 5 critical steps to keeping your kids safe online. One pager, video, checklist, action steps for you to protect your children online. As we've gone through 2 years of our children being even more inundated with the online world, us parents, myself included, struggle with how do we balance our children with being online and then being in the real world and keeping them safe, primarily keeping them safe. It's a reality that the digital world is here for our children, and as much as we would like to limit their consumption of online activity and material, which I encourage, setting time limits, the reality is that children are going to go on there. If they're not going to go on under your supervision, you don't have a lot of control when they go to their friends and go out there in the world to other activities. So the best thing we can do as parents is to arm our children with the knowledge of how to navigate the online world safely. So what I've done, and there's so many different topics, so many different roads you can go down on this topic of children and social media and the online world. I've picked out 5 that I think are critical to at least start, if you haven't, to set some guidelines for your children to keep them safe online. Don't try to beat them, join them. What I mean here is, if your children are on social media, befriend them, be their friends on social media. That way you can see what they're posting. Sometimes your children may seem a little awkward about having their parent as a friend. If that's the case, I mean, children do grow, they're all at different levels and they have different relationships with their parents, but ultimately, if you have a good relationship with your child, they shouldn't have any problem with you being their friend online, because there's nothing that they're really trying to hide from you. So be their friend online on their social media sites. See what they're posting. And then also, if they know that you're their friend, they might be a little bit more selective on what they post. But keep in mind that children are savvy to the digital world, sometimes more savvy than adults, and they can create duplicate accounts, and they can also block you from seeing those accounts. So let's say you are a friend on social media with your child and you don't see a lot of activity, or you just don't see many friends in there, or associates, or you don't see many comments or likes, then that should be cause for concern. That, is this just a fake account or not a fake account? Did they set it up for mom or dad or family, and they have an alternative account somewhere out there where that's where their real digital world is. The other thing you want to be concerned about and talk to your children about is that digital footprints are forever. Meaning, once you hit post or send or transmit or submit into the digital world, assume that it is there forever. Even if it's deleted, these files are able to come to surface. And the other thing is once it's sent out, people copy, record, and they preserve, for whatever reason, they preserve these digital images or digital files. And so talk to your children about whatever they put out there is out there forever. Now, there are some statistics about sexting with kids, and it's actually, I don't like boring people with statistics, but it's pretty significant on children or kids in middle school on up they are involved in sexting. And depending on what source you read out there, some are very you can't get your kids to stop doing it. So what you need to do is educate them on how to do it, or how to keep themselves safe doing it. I never take that approach. I always take the approach of, just like with drugs and alcohol, I don't assume my kids are going to do it. because once you accept that, like, oh, it's a rite of passage, then you accept that your children are going to go through this rite of passage and you have absolutely no control or influence. That is not true. So I talk to my children about sexting and about images, and so should you, that even if they're in a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, as you know, these relationships don't last forever, but once they send a video or an image or text, that is forever. So if they break that relationship, and sometimes it's not a good breakup, those images can be used to embarrass the other person. So set realistic, but also set strict boundaries. Realistic being that children do go online, they use it for school, and they need to learn how to navigate it. It's not like it's going away. With social media, I'm going to do a separate video article about social media and the influence on children, and it's not good. There's good to everything, but there's also a bad and an evil side to it. And unfortunately, with our children, social media, the negativity of social media far outweighs the positiveness of it. And that's even with some control measures that you put in. One of the biggest things with setting rules is setting rules that you actually follow through with. And I'm guilty of this, as every parent is, where the child does something, and it might not even be social media or online related. It might be something with their chores that they don't do, and you're like, you know what? You're grounded from going online or screen time for a week, and you just like throw it out there. Or you're not going on the computer tomorrow. You're no screen time for you tomorrow. And then you throw out those punishments or consequences, and then you don't follow through with it because it's not realistic. Like they have to go on for school, or maybe they're doing something else, or maybe you just give in. And so whatever rules you set, follow through with them. And that's like with anything. All right. What about monitoring the internet and device activity? So I've educated on drug awareness for over 20 years. And I've always told parents, like, they have a right to search their children's property, their bags, their room, their items, their car, because they are a parent, and that's their duty to be a parent. And I'll get parents often that will say, well, it's an invasion of my child's privacy, like we're establishing trust. And I always remember in 1987, Ronald Reagan, when he was talking with Mikhail Gorbachev about the INF treaty, President Reagan said, trust but verify. So do I go through my children's stuff? Rarely do I. Rarely do I look into their activities. When do I? When there's suspicion that something's not right. And you're a parent, you have intuition. And if you know how your children act, and all of a sudden they're acting a little differently, then that's cause for concern, and you need to investigate, why is my child acting differently? So it's not an invasion of your child's privacy to go through their phone. And if your child is a minor, or your child's on your phone account, then there should be no debate about it. If they're having a device and they're a minor, that's a privilege. It's not an entitlement. So for example, like my kids with Find Friends on Apple and whatnot, like until they turn 18, my children have Find Friends enabled. They're on my account, they're a minor, and that's my duty as a parent to monitor where they're at and their phone, to go through it and do a little phone audit to see what's going on in their phone. So having said that, there's also monitoring programs or software. I've personally used Circle software, which is really easy to use. You can see the devices, you can attach the devices to the children, you can pause them, unpause them, and then you can see their activity right on your phone. It'll show a history, and then you can block sites. The program is already set up to block certain sites, and so you can see if they're trying to access certain sites. So privacy and protection, just as you would want to maintain a sense of privacy in real life, so should you online. I can tell you from personal experience doing investigations that children are much more open with their privacy than adults are. So when I'm trying to track down a fugitive or a suspect or locate associates, if I can't find much activity on them, but I know that they have children, teen children, or any other children, even adult children, a lot of times I'll use the children to get intelligence or information on the parents because they're a lot more open. The younger they are, it seems to be, the more open they are because they don't have a concept of privacy as much as adults do, and they don't have a concern about privacy as much as adults do. But remember, it's in a family, the weakest link is the link that's compromised. And so you don't want to have your children that are exposing you and your privacy. So you can go down and you can read the article, and then you can also see some of the privacy rules that you need to talk to your children about. And a lot of these are settings that, like location settings, in photographs, and just on the phone itself, so that people can't track down you or your child. There's many different things you can go through the checklist, but that's a big one. And then obviously never should your child meet somebody in real life that they've met online, unless you're aware of it. And that's a cardinal rule there. And there's a lot of stories out there and examples where a child did meet somebody online and went and met this person in real life, and sometimes it was thwarted before the meet went, fortunately, and sometimes it wasn't, and these can lead to unfortunate results. VPNs, or virtual private networks, are good to have on phones and on devices because it does give you some layer of protection. And then also, when you're filling out forms, it's always better to put less information than it is to put more information. All right, so I want to also tell you about my personal wake-up calls. And so I have 8 girls, 4 boys. I have 6 kids at home. My oldest son's I think 25 now or so, but when he was younger, we had our computer in a central location in the kitchen, which is recommended that you have your computer out where you can see what they're doing on there. And I'd come into the kitchen. It was at night. He was doing homework late at night, and came into the kitchen, and he minimized the screen right away, which is an indicator that, well, why'd you minimize the screen? Sometimes they're just supposed to be doing homework and they're watching a video or playing a game or just searching the internet. And so they'll minimize the screen. And anytime you see your child minimize the screen, you should investigate, like, why did they minimize it? So I said, oh, what are you doing? And what'd you minimize? So he opened it up, and it was a chat box. And there was a little profile picture of a woman, an attractive woman, that was saying, there's a little chat box dialogue going on, and the woman is like, oh, send me pictures of yourself. And so, first of all, I didn't even think my son was at the age where he would get involved in a chat box like that. And so I said, well, how'd this start? And he just said that he was approached through this instant message. We're talking probably late 90s. So this is when there was like more instant message chat boxes, and it was probably through Yahoo. And he was just randomly approached by this woman. And so I said, you realize that profile picture there, that's most likely not a woman. That's most likely a guy posing as a woman, and he wants your pictures. And the photos are usually innocent in the beginning, and then they get more like, oh, I'll share a photo with you if you share one with me. And of course, the photo they share is not of them. It might be a pornography image of a woman, but it's not them. And so this is a way that sexual predators will lure boys into releasing photos. And you might say, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that once the person on the other end gets these photos, they then use it to blackmail your child into giving more photos and videos and continuing the relationship to the point where they even want to meet in real life. And they'll blackmail saying, I'll release this to all your friends, to your parents. And so the child is trapped because they feel like they have nowhere to go. And if they talk to their parents about it, that they're going to be disciplined and taken offline forever. And so the children don't know what to do. So that was one example. Second one was more recently when I put Circle into our home, and the son at home now was about 13 or 4, I think he was 13. And I put the Circle monitoring system on all the devices through the internet. And I looked, and it said attempted sites, and there were pornographic sites that were attempted but were blocked. And so it says blocked sites. So I approached him and I said, "Are you trying to go on these sites?" And he denied it. But I could tell from his behavior, his body language, that yes, he was, it was that he was trying to go on these sites. And so I said, "Look, right here, like, you can't deny it. They're on here." And so he said, "Yeah, a friend of mine told me about it." And so, I decided to look at it, or try to check it out. And of course, he didn't get through the monitoring software, but he was attempting to. So, if you go back to when we were younger, you couldn't access pornography unless you got your hands on a magazine or something like that, which was difficult, if not impossible. It was just random that you came across something, or somebody in a neighborhood had something, or a friend. Nowadays, all you have to do is pick up your phone, and within 5 seconds, you can get any pornography. You can get anything you want. And so that's the real world we live in. And parents will often ask me, when should I give my child a device, a phone? And I said, when you're ready to have them exposed to pornography. And they're like, oh, and they're shocked. Well, if you don't have the right settings on your computer, go into Google and do a search, or go into DuckDuckGo and do a search, even some innocent searches. And if your search settings aren't at safe, moderate, or if they're not at safe or moderate, you're going to get images that will shock you. So just a side note that you should always try to set these up. Are these foolproof? No, of course they're not foolproof. Children are savvy. They can log out of their Apple account and log into and create a new account, and where now they're just bypassing all your safeguards because they've logged out and created a new account through Apple. So, and some other clues. Another example is when I had set time limits on the phone for their devices. 2 hours a day, they get 2 hours a day, and they can request more time depending on what they're doing. Sometimes they're doing an instructional video through YouTube. And so you'll get requests, like more screen time requests, and it'll pop up and you approve it. And so 2 of my daughters are continuously sending me requests to upgrade or to give them more screen time. But all of a sudden my son, I'm like, that's weird. I haven't, for like 2 weeks, I haven't seen, a week or two, I haven't seen any requests for more time. And why is that? Well, that's because he figured out the password and overrode all the overtime requests, and so he could have as much time as he wanted. So I hope these tips have helped you. There's so many more aspects of social media and the online world that affects our children, and it's probably the biggest dilemma that parents have, and the biggest struggle they have today with keeping their children safe overall is they spend so much time online, and the effects even on our children especially in the last 2 years. We probably won't see for years to come how the last 2 years have affected them with being more isolated and even put more on social media and online devices. So I hope these helped you out. Please give me some feedback, send emails. I love to hear stories, success stories, and then also stories where you realized that there's something going on with your child, you discovered it, and I would like to know how you solved the problem or how you resolved the issue that you came across. And I also would like to find out your biggest struggle with your child and online, navigating the online world. So thanks again, Darren Fredrickson with Team Guardian, and I am launching a real Spy Kids Academy that's going to be online based, but it actually has hands-on field activities for children. It has stories, and your children become special agents as they learn about personal protection, both online and in the real world. And they develop courage and confidence to basically handle crisis or threatening situations. And then if unfortunately it's physical confrontation, how they are able to survive that. If you want to learn more about that, go ahead and click on the lower right. There's more information about the Real Spy Kids Academy. Thanks, have a great day, be safe, and always master your surroundings. Thank you.